Welcome to lesson number 5 of the Bible as your GPS, and lesson number 5 we will focus on the last two processes of the GPS method. The second process is application and the third process is communication. Page number 52. I'd like someone to read page number 52. Who likes to read that? Thank you, Rafi.
The purpose of the process of application is to bring the message to the original receivers across time by applying it to our situation. We've seen that the Bible was written in totally different language, culture, time, situation, and history that we are used to in the 21st century. Therefore, we cannot apply everything in the Bible to our life today. How do we determine what to apply and what not?
Thank you, Rafi. You understand that we cannot apply everything from the Bible into our lives because of the language, cultural and situation differences. Now the question is, how do we determine what to apply and what not? Then you have 2 lines to fill in. I would like to read for you. You first need to distinguish the difference between an, you can write down, essential, here you write, essential, E-S-S-E-N-T-I-A-L, essential. And an incidental, great. On page 52, I have the differences there for you. I'd like to read it for you. An essential, it is when the message is applicable to the original receiver and everyone. So it's applicable to the people of the Bible and it is applicable to us in the 21st century. That is an essential. Another word for essential, and I know the postmodern person, they don't like that word, is an absolute. It is something that's always true. It is universal. But I think for the sake of the Bible course, I'm going to use the word essential. And that is something that is true for the people of the Bible and it's true for us. An incidental on page 52, last line. The message is only applicable to the original receiver. Does that make sense to you? It is something that's temporary. It's something that's relative. We cannot apply it into our lives today. Let's go to the next slide. The next slide is with the question, how do you know when a Bible passage is an essential or an incidental? You need to distinguish the 3 types of laws in the Bible as well as one practice. If you understand that, it will help you to determine whether the message is essential or incidental. So the 3 laws will be ceremonial laws, the next one will be civil law, and the next one will be moral law. And then we have one practice, we call it a cultural practice. So let us go to our page number 53. How do we know when a passage is an essential or an incidental? And then you can write the following. Number 1, we don't need to read Exodus 30 verse 17 to 22, but it is an example of a ceremonial law. It is the sacrificial system in the Old Testament. It's where you need to slaughter a lamb and bring it as an offering. It's the ceremonies. Does that make sense to you? What do you think was the reason for that? Like in the book of Leviticus, you have all these ceremonial laws. What was the purpose of that? Can anyone just enter the most holy place? No, they needed to follow a certain ceremony. It's to show us that God is holy. God is holy. Number 2, you can fill in the blank space. It will be a civil law. And the passage there is Deuteronomy 22 verse 8. And Deuteronomy 22 verse 8 says, you need to have a railing on your rooftop. In those days, the rooftops were flat because they didn't get a lot of rain. And when they get visitors, they will go to the rooftop. It's hot in Israel. And then they will visit there. But if there was no railing, it was very dangerous for the kids to play. So the bylaw of Jerusalem was, you need to have railing. We have different bylaws in our time. So a civil law, what's the reason for a civil law, you think, or a bylaw? To keep order? Safety, yeah, to keep order. Safety. In what passage in the Bible we get the Ten Commandments? There are two, but
Deuteronomy 5, chapter 5.
Yeah, and another one, Exodus chapter 20, the Ten Commandments. So that will brings us number 3, the moral law. What is the purpose of the moral law? The Ten Commandments can be summarized. We need to love God. And then the other laws will tell us how to love people. Don't steal, don't murder. It's how to love people. So what's the purpose of moral laws, you think?
How to be more godlike.
How to be more godlike, you're right. Do you think it is there to help us to build strong and healthy relationships with God and with people? Because if you steal, can you build healthy relationships with people? No, because they won't trust you. So the purpose of the moral law is to build a healthy relationship with God and with people. To build trust, integrity. And you remember our passage for the youth worker, for the kiss, 1 Peter 5 verse 14. That is a cultural practice. In those days, they will kiss one another to show Christian love. In many other countries, even men will hug one another and kiss on this cheek and on that cheek. It is to show brotherly love. So you have the cultural practice. What's the reason of a cultural practice? Why do people have cultural practices? Do you think it's about identity?
It defines their identity.
Yes, you're right. It defines their identity. Because this is how they do it. It's their culture. It's where they feel safe. It's to preserve and to determine who they are. It's how they do things. That's why you go to another country and you need to know what their cultures are, the practices are, because you can offend them. This is how they do things. Are there any questions at this time? Let us move then to the next slide. Please select the proper word for the blank spaces. It's either essential or incidental. Ceremonial laws were for the original receivers. What do you think? Essential for the original receivers, but are incidental for us, because we don't need to slaughter a lamb, because it was all fulfilled in Christ Jesus. It's a different practice. It was fulfilled in Christ's offering on the cross. That's why it's an incidental. We don't need to do it anymore. Jesus was the perfect lamb. Civil laws were for the original receivers. Essential. But are? What's the answer there? Luana?
Incidental.
Incidental for us. Why? Because our situation is different. We have different bylaws in our city than the city of Jerusalem because of different time, situation, and culture. In the Canadian culture, when you enter a house, you take off your shoes. In another culture, you just don't do it. So it's incidental when you go to another country. But when you come to Canada, you take off your shoes. That is essential. Moral laws were essential for the original receiver, and it is essential for us. Why? Because it goes beyond language, time, situation, and history. Do we need to love in every culture? Is to steal wrong in every culture? To murder? Yes. Because it's about morality. It's about building strong and healthy relationships. Cultural practices were essential for the original receivers, and it is, Rafi?
Incidental.
Why is it incidental, Rafi? You're right, but what?
We're dependent on a different culture.
Correct.
Than our earlier ancestors.
Correct, you're 100% right. So it's incidental for us because of the different culture, time, situation, and history. Any questions? Does that make sense to you? Let's go to the conclusion, our next page, 55. Ceremonial laws, therefore, are? Now, we think of the 21st century. Ceremonial laws, therefore, are incidental or essential? Incidental. Think of us in the 21st century. Civil laws, therefore, are? Incidental. Cultural practices are? Incidental. Moral laws, therefore, are? Why? Because it goes beyond language, time, and culture. Therefore, only the are applicable to us. What's the missing word? Only the moral laws are applicable to us. So when you get a passage in the Bible and it talks about you need to build a railing on your rooftop, do you need to do it in your city today or in your town? No. Because it is a cultural difference. But do we need to have safety measurements in our culture? Yes, that's the moral thing. Because we like to build good relationships with people. They won't come and visit you if your house is not safe. But we do other things to make it safe for people to come and visit us. So you cannot apply the cultural, the civil, and the ceremonial things over into our culture in our days. Only the moral laws. Any questions?